Lesson 27. Having navigated through the Penmanship guideline book, the Penmanship book, you will have learned how to manipulate the pen correctly. As Reg Phillips would have wanted us to do, we have looked at the foundations before superimposing a new construction on the top of them. So if the foundations are not strong, you can't expect the construction that you put on the top of them to be of much help. So Reg would always get people to give an example before and after of their handwriting. So here is an example before, which would be, say, says, their kind aunt was subject to frequent dizzy spells. So this person, after having improved their pen manipulation, chose the italic hand and then wrote the same passage out, and we've got their kind aunt was subject to frequent dizzy spells, thus causing much anxiety and worry in the italic hand. So you can see how the italic hand is much more legible. So what I'll do now is I'll show you the choice of handwriting styles that you can use. I'll see what I have here. There's many examples in the Skills of Handwriting by Reginald C. Phillips. So looking into my book, Penmanship book, you'll see the italic hand, which really was started by a scribe called Poggio Bracciolini in 1406. His first examples of italic were noted by paleographers, and from 1406 to around about 1522, when the first copybook was written, it was known as Chancery italic, because Chancery italic was used for letters written to the Chancery and to the papal princes, and it was a faster hand, but extremely legible, and took over from the Gothic handwriting of the Middle Ages. So this handwriting really, it's basically a little bit more of based on an oval shape. It's still curving. It's got more of an upright hand, but it's not vertical. So it's got a slope forward. It's a lot more forgiving if you decide to change your style. So here we have the letters with the capitals, which we can show to you as well again to refresh your memory. But that is a very nice hand and is also used many times by calligraphers. It's the favoured hand of calligraphers. This is done with an edged pen, so if you're going to choose italic, you will need to use an edged pen, which would give you a thin up stroke and a thicker down stroke. So this it does naturally with no pressure. So the italic hand, for instance, would have been used by Elizabeth I. She was one of the early adopters of the italic hand and was taught by a great teacher, Mr. Ascombe, and so you'll often see her signature, which contains many flourishes. And that is the classic italic of that era, and that lasted up until the early 1800s. It was done with a quill, and it was more or less outdone when the pointed steel nib was introduced in the 1820s and 30s. Now, so you could choose that style, or you could move to the copperplate hand. Now, the copperplate hand of the 18th century was just evolving into a copperplate hand then, because in 1850 a book was written called The Universal Penman, and that book was put out by a very talented engraver. So when he was engraving with a tool for engraving, a burn, I think they call it, it was possible to get fine hairlines. So that style was able to be executed with extremely fine hairlines and ending in very fine blot dots at the ends of strokes. So it is a style that was faster than italic in some ways. It slopes further forward, and it is a very handsome hand. It's often seen on the bottles of champagne. You'll see the word champagne written in copperplate. You'll see it's used sometimes on the front of pianos. Frederick Marnes was an absolute expert at the art of copperplate penmanship, probably the finest exponent if you wish to look at his work. And he was a writing master of mine, and I guess he wrote it very slowly to perfect the curves and the flow of it. When I write it, I tend to write it fairly quickly, and I end up with an interesting style, which I've used in this letter at the back of the penmanship book. So this is a letter I've written in the copperplate style, which is a faster version. If I bring it up a little bit closer, you might be able to see the style itself. So that's my fast copperplate, which doesn't have a great emphasis on emphasizing the thick and thin strokes. I will tell you more about these scripts, copperplate and italic, in later videos. At this stage, you can start investigating which of them you like, and always keep an eye on the way you manipulate the pen and how much you know about penmanship, so you can continue to monitor your own progress in those areas as well. Thank you. This is the last lesson of my penmanship workshop. Thank you.